Hi, I'm Holly. I write and teach the Bible studies here at Study with Friends. My background in this is a combination of formal education and my own personal study of the Word. I infuse perspectives from different systematic theologies when I think that would be helpful in rounding out our understanding of the text. But for the record, my formal education is from a Reformed theological seminary. I strongly believe that we should all understand the background of anyone who's teaching us about the Bible. So if you'd like, you can learn more about me at studywithfriends.org or zondervan.com. This is a group of real women doing Bible study and life together, and we're really glad you're here. God, thank you for bringing us together for this time around your word. Thank you for the promise that you will help us to understand the things that you have for us, not just tonight, but in the entire Old Testament, the entire Bible. We ask that you would give us an extra measure of understanding and grace as we tackle a really big chunk of the Old Testament. Help us to understand the continuity and the unity of your story across all the biblical texts. And we ask you for a fresh understanding that we can take with us into our practical lives. We ask it in Jesus' name for his glory alone. Amen. Okay, let's do introductions. Hi, Kate. I'll do me first, and then I'm coming to you.
Okay.
I'm Holly, and I'm here all the time. And I am the teacher and author, and I almost said my age. I'm not going there. And I've married 25 years. 25? 26. Okay. And I have two great kids, one of whom is sitting across from me. And I attend a Presbyterian church. And that's good. That's enough information. The rest of it will come out as we work through the text.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Hello, my name is Kate. I'm a full-time college student, and I attend a non-denominational church.
Yeah, great.
Is it non-denominational?
Yeah.
I thought it was something.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I'm Gianna. I'm Holly's daughter. I'm the one who's Holly's daughter, in case you couldn't tell. And I am also a full-time college student, and I'm trying not to look at a camera. Am I allowed to look at the camera?
You can look anywhere you want.
I'm like, I know where it is, and I'm actively avoiding it.
I mean, you can look at it.
You're not supposed to, but
It's okay either way. It doesn't matter.
And I don't remember what the other things were. Oh, I go to a Presbyterian church,
yeah,
because I go to the church my parents did too. But
although you were virtually attending a different church, was that also Presbyterian when you were with your roommates?
Oh, I went to one. We alternated. We went to one in Texas, and that was a
Do
good
you know
time.
the denomination?
I
was just curious.
feel like the one in Chicago was Baptist, and I don't know what the one.
That's okay.
church
I didn't
in-
mean to put you on the spot.
I don't know what the church in Texas was, but it was a good time whenever it was.
Okay.
He wore a cowboy hat.
Good.
Wow.
Thank you.
It's fantastic.
The preacher wore
Oh
a
yeah,
cowboy
the
hat?
preacher wore a cowboy hat.
Okay, that's worth
Love
watching. Okay. And
Hi, my name's Angelina. I'm a full-time college student as well, and I attend a non-denominational church.
easy for you to say. Okay.
Oh,
Phenomena.
Oh,
Okay.
what are we no, we're not majoring in anything.
Yeah, I mean,
Are
if
we
you
majoring in
you
things?
can introduce yourself however you want.
We're done now.
Yeah. So you missed your
You
window.
Just yell out your major.
Well, I'm always very impressed by Angie's major, so I will.
What is your major?
Biology.
Oh.
She's pre-med.
Pre-med, yeah.
I
She's
gotta
a
go on a whole
doctor.
tangent.
I'm proud of you.
That's very sweet.
I'm already dressed for my
Aw.
occupation. Psychology.
Yes. You totally have that vibe right now.
So how did that make you feel?
Really bad. I think it has something to do with my relationship with my mother.
Not the mommy issues.
The mommy issues rife, I'm sure, in my family. Okay, so I wanted to do some foundation. So I was talking to you guys before we turned on all the equipment, and really wanted to give you guys some help, because I only asked you to do this one section, which is the latter prophets, which is, I'm sure you were happy about that, because the rest of it would have been a lot to do. But I'd like to do a little bit of work with you in some of the concepts that we are bringing through the other two series, so that A, to make sure that you guys have that foundation as we explore the latter prophets, and B, did I say one or A? One,
matter.
and
Oh.
B,
I do it all the time.
and secondly, so that I can be sure that anybody who jumps in here at this part of the series also has that sort of foundational.
I would appreciate it previously on.
Yeah.
Previously on?
Previously.
That would actually be
Previously
funny.
on the Vampire
Previously on Study with Friends. What'd you say?
Previously on the
On the
Vampire
Vampire
Diaries.
All right. So, a couple things that I wanted to do that work with were both the covenant theme. I hate looking over my glasses. Both because I feel so grandmotherly. The covenant theme, which is I'm going to go into in a minute, and then also the personal applications of the three pieces of the covenant theme that we're then bringing through into the latter prophets. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking about that. Jump in. Just because I'm the teacher or the author doesn't mean you can't interrupt me with awesome insights, because I know you have them. So just jump in. First, I wanted to ask you guys, does the Old Testament sometimes feel distant to you?
Absolutely.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Particularly the prophets.
Really?
Yeah, like some of the stuff you like read and you're like, oh, that's cool. Like the Psalms are good. And like some of that stuff, it's like kind of timeless. And then you get into like Habakkuk and I'm like,
Okay, good.
Yeah.
who?
I hope that the
Why?
work we do together will help with that. That is the point. That is the point. But yeah, I think that a lot of people stay away from the Old Testament. Tell me if this is your experience. You stay away from it because it feels very distant. Like it doesn't necessarily feel relevant to what's happening in your life.
I
It's
feel like,
like-
go
Oh, sorry.
ahead.
It's just kind of like there's a lot to relate to in the New Testament, at least for me personally, and I think in the Old Testament it's very like I mean, it's good to read because it's like convicting. Oh my goodness. But it's a lot of like things that we don't follow anymore. Like we don't make offerings to God anymore, and like other stuff like that. That we just don't do anymore. So it's kind of like, okay, we wouldn't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
and
do
so
I
it
have to
feels
read
it
it?
feels like it might not be relevant.
Yeah.
Okay. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, I feel like a lot more of the New Testament is like, hey, I see that in my life. I feel like I can apply this. But with the Old Testament, it's like you have to see it through a different lens. You can't take it as literally as you can with the New Testament a lot of the time, which is why also I think just with like the younger honestly everyone, it's just like
so young.
no, I feel like a lot of the times like younger people, but honestly anyone, is just like, I want this to relate to what I'm going through right now. But a lot of the Old Testament, even some of the New Testament, but especially the Old Testament, is like you can't just be like, how is you have to see it a different way.
Okay, you said so much there. Everybody just said so much. I want to unpack a couple of things. First, you said the New Testament gives you kind of, it's almost like a how-to. And I think that's important. Of course, we all recognize the New Testament is important. In each part of these studies, we talk about how it applies and how it relates to the New Testament. So, of course, we want to see that unity through Old and New. But also, I don't want to go too deep into this question, but do you think that people spend more time in the New Testament because they want to, like what you just said, let me see if I'm reflecting back what you said, because they want to know, like, how does this apply? What do I need to do? And sometimes I call that, it's not a criticism, but I don't know how else to really phrase it. It's almost like a consumerism Christianity. You're like, how does this change me, change my life, make my life better? And the New Testament is a lot easier to apprehend in that way. And it's great if you want to, look for some lists of like, here's the do's and here's the don'ts. I love a list. In fact, I wish that more lists existed, because I feel like sometimes it's a little hard to unpack, and I'm like, just give me a list. But I think that there's a danger there, because if we're only looking at how does this work for me, it's a little bit like, I hate to say American, like capitalism kind of faith, but I don't know how else to describe it. Don't get political.
I was like, oh, let's talk
Don't-
about
don't do
capitalism.
it. Don't do it.
My eyes lit up
I
when
know,
you said
but yeah, I'm
capitalism.
shutting it down. So do you understand what I mean by that? So what happens then is the Old Testament, because it's harder. I hate to, but we're humans. We're a little lazy. So if it's easier for me to read the New Testament, and I feel like, oh well, this is all in the light of Christ, and we're talking about Christ, and I live under Christ in the New Covenant. I just really need to pay most of my attention to this, and we miss this whole awesome thing. And one of the most important things that I have uncovered in the Old Testament is the character of the God that I serve. And it becomes less about me and what I'm taking from it and more about orienting myself to him and understanding him. And I think maybe that's what drives some of this New Testament, Old Testament balance, because it's easier. First of all, although I really hope that this series makes it easier if we can find some nice anchors to put into the Old Testament that'll help us have sort of a place. I've been using the word roadmap and sort of that imagery a lot. Like, how do I make my way through these Old Testament books? And I hope that we're doing that here. So that will make it easier. I hope it also makes it more relevant. But that's just the covenant. The covenant theme is just one way you can really understand the Old Testament. Excuse me. You can understand it by, looking for attributes of God, looking for previews of Christ. There's a lot of ways you can tackle the Old Testament. We're just picking one of those ways. But I think that there's so many treasures and nuggets and things in the Old Testament. Like, we'll look at Habakkuk, and I hope today we'll look at some of the things and you're like, wait a minute, I totally get it in a different way. That's the goal. And unfortunately, we have a couple hours we're going to spend together. And so it's 16 books. We can't do a deep dive. But what I really would love is if this gives you a springboard so that maybe you tuck it in your Bible and you're like, okay, next time I read any of these books, I'm going to look at who was Habakkuk's audience, what was the time frame, what were the conditions of Israel, and how can I relate that to myself? Okay. So that's sort of we're casting a vision for our time together. Another thing that you said, I want to say, and I actually made it in my notes, but you lobbed it up to me, so I'm going to hit it, is that a lot of things that happen in the Old Testament in a physical way happen in our lives in a spiritual way. And that's a good transition for me. So we think about like the Promised Land. The Promised Land still exists. It's a geographic place on the planet. But we think about our spiritual Promised Land. We think about our journey through a spiritual wilderness into a spiritual Promised Land. Maybe we didn't move geographic locations during that process, but it was an internal process. We can think about I'm going to preview the three parts of each covenant, which is land, descendants, and a special relationship with God. When I think about land, promised land, I think about that internal working that Jesus promised, that you might have life and have it abundantly. Like, this time that I'm spending right now is giving me a deeper, richer promised land experience with Christ. Does that make sense? It's a spiritual promised land. Descendants are another spiritual thing. So Paul talks a lot about how even the Gentiles can be spiritual descendants of Abraham. And so Paul does a lot of this work to help us transition our thinking from a physical descendancy to a spiritual descendancy. Are you following what I'm saying? Is what I'm saying making sense? So a lot of times we talk about people in the church as our family, our church family, sisters and brothers in Christ. I might have spiritual descendants who aren't my children that I pushed out of my womb. I might have people that mentor me or who I mentor. You can be a descendant, you can have descendants. It doesn't have to be anymore about the true father-child relationship. So we think about physical descendants in the Old Testament. That was really important because they had the line that they needed to keep sort of, I don't want to say sacred, but keep consistency through the line to fulfill the prophecy. But now the spiritual descendancy is different. It's a spiritual thing. And then obviously the relationship with God, we're going to talk about that in the latter prophets a lot. And God was very, very specific about worship and relationships and how people behaved. And that's still true for us. We shouldn't, cast our eyes on other things that we might be tempted to worship, but it's different now because we have that relationship that's provided through Christ and what he did what he accomplished on the cross. So, like you mentioned earlier, did you do that while we were mic'd up? Yeah, you were talking about how it feels a little bit irrelevant because it's like sacrifices and the way that they attained relationship was different. And the way, so you see where I'm drawing this, okay. So I think that you kind of lobbed us into that because you were like, there's a, I see you, I'm sorry, hold on one second. There's sort of a, these physical things feel far away. Is that what you were saying?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good context as we try to look at the latter prophets and find the relevancy for us in real life now. What were you going to say?
Just having a little bit of an epiphany because I remember like in Sunday school that whole we're all descendants of Abraham, and thinking back then, now that doesn't sound right, but just accepting it. And then also the song Father Abraham and many sons. And then I just said, and I'm one of them and so are you, and I just accepted it spiritually.
You're having an epiphany?
It just clicked. Sorry, it just clicked that they meant spiritually, not physically.
Yeah, well,
because that's just something that I accepted at 4 years old and then never thought about again until just now.
That's good. That's
so
the
I'm
whole
sorry
point
for
of
the...
That's okay. I'm glad you had that realization, and probably, well, I hope as people, no, don't feel dumb, because that's kind of the point of us doing this work, is that we want to make this, by the time we're done, 16 plus 11, 27 books. Wait, 11? Yeah. 27 books will have been at least surveyed by this series. And that's the point, is that you get fresh understandings and new things fall on you, and you're like, wait a minute, I never thought about that way before. And it might just simply be because you didn't spend a lot of time in the Old Testament. It might be that you never looked at it with a covenant lens, but whatever God brings to you, be glad about it. That's an epiphany, and you should be thankful. We'll take them. We'll take them.
And now we'll all have that song stuck in our head.
I know.
I was singing it earlier.
Father Abraham had 7 sons.
Many sons.
Several sons?
Many sons.
Many sons? Okay. Yeah, he had more than 7. Okay. Okay,
Many
so
sons.
so I wanted to talk a little bit about the covenants. I want to give the address for each of them again. So because we're in the latter prophets now, we're not dealing with any of them anymore. We did them in the other series. So the 4 covenants that we're really talking about that all have the same 3 themes are the Noahic covenant, which you can find in Genesis 9, the Abrahamic covenant, which you can find in Genesis 12, the Mosaic covenant, Moses, which you can find in Exodus 19 and 24, and then the Davidic covenant, which is 2 Samuel 7. And I would encourage anybody who would like to unpack that a little bit more to either go do the homework, which you can find at studywithfriends.org, or go just read them right out of the Bible. And what we're looking at is the fact that it's so fascinating. Like, one of the reasons I was so excited to teach this is I took a class and I saw this, and it's like, as soon as you see that 3-part theme, you can't unsee it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then all of a sudden you start reading the Old Testament and you're like, it's everywhere. And I got so jazzed to teach that, because I was like, it changes everything about how you read the Old Testament and how you think about the New Testament. And I was joking with one of the other participants in an earlier series. It's like when you buy a new car and then you see that car everywhere. You know, like,
That is totally real.
it is real. And that, I think, is what happens with this covenant lens too. Did you find that happening? Yeah. So it's kind of fun, right? When you're like, wait a minute, there's a whole nother thing in there. I've been studying this book for a long time, and now there's a brand new, and I'm 40 something. Almost said the number. I'm middle-aged. And I've been studying this book for a long time. So for something like that to be such a game changer at this stage of my game, I just could not wait to get in front of you guys and just chew on it together. So I hope you're as excited about it as I am. So the 3 parts, does anybody want to throw out the 3 parts of each covenant, every covenant? It's okay. It's in the homework, so you can see peek.
It was descendants, land, and the special relationship.
Yes, with God. Perfect. And one of the things that we did in the Pentateuch series is we saw how even before God formalized those 3 themes and the importance of them in his first covenants, you can see those all the way back in the creation story. By its nature, the creation story is about land, descendants, and a special relationship with God. And so it's sort of, I just got goosebumps again.
Yeah, you
I was
said
like-
that, and I was just like,
It
I started thinking
blows
about it.
your
I was like,
mind a little bit. So even before he formalized those themes in his covenants with his beloved patriarchs, you can see that he had those things in mind for his created beings, his image bearers, all along. Before we even leave the garden, we see be fruitful and multiply, which is descendants. The garden itself is the creation of land, right? The garden could be perceived as a type of promised land, right? And the special relationship with God that they had in the garden. He walked with them. He talked with them. So this was always his intention. Does that blow your mind a little bit? That
especially you saying that now, it's just like you think about it, you're like, how did I not see that?
I know.
It feels
That's
a
how I
little
felt.
oversimplified. Part of me is saying it can't just be that.
Well,
There's gotta
it's
be
not
something else.
just that, but what you see then is how the unified story of the Bible really revolves around God's perfect intention for us all along.
Mm.
And you
Well, yeah.
see how especially through the Old Testament, and then you'll see it in the New Testament, how and that's why I said it's important to be able to think about those things in a spiritual way. But for sure through the Old Testament, if you can take that covenant lens and say land, descendants, and a special relationship with God, you will see it everywhere. And what you'll see is the prophets are warning that Israel is going to lose those three things, and they're totally interwoven. They're exiled from the promised land because of their lack of worshiping God and maintaining that special relationship. Their descendants are impacted because they're exiled. Sometimes their descendancy is disrupted because God just wipes out a whole bunch of them. So you see these three things are really closely tied together, and the prophets and the leaders of Moses and Joshua and the judges, they're all leading, and the prophets are all leading in ways that try to keep Israel on track with this threefold desire that God has for his people. And so do you guys want to say more about that? Because I don't want to jump into the next piece because I would talk all night about that one part. So anything else you want to comment on that, I would love to hear.
It's heavy.
It is. Yeah,
There's like yes, but also no. Because yes, I feel like I have a ton of things to say, but if you ask me to pick out one thing to say, I'm like,
hard to articulate.
no idea.
Yeah,
Like,
that's why I thought that what I was bantering back and forth with one of the other participants, her name is Kathy, I was like, you just can't unsee it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so it's important that we lay that foundation each time we sit down, because people need to have that moment of like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
God had a perfect design in the garden. It was land, and you can think about all those things. How Adam named the animals, and this relationship with the land, and how when they were disobedient they were ejected from the land, and how if we think about our spiritual promised land, when we sin and when we reject God, or when we just don't maintain our relationship with him, we move away from that spiritual promised land that we feel so deeply when we're really having a great intimate season with him, right? So they were physically ejected from that promised land. And the whole rest of the Old Testament is about a journey for God to bring his people into a new promised land.